So I think everyone is in for now, so we will go ahead and get started. I want to thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar. For those that don't know me, I'm Angie Jones, Director of the Family Business Center at the University of Toledo. And today's topic, we are going to be talking about marketing your business as we are all in the process of reopening and getting back to whatever normal will be these days. But I know for us, getting out and about, getting back into our routine a little bit, baseball started at our house, so we are thrilled to death. That seems normal to us. So we've assembled a great team today. We have Tim Sidoris with Infostream, Joe Carver with Carver Media, Mike Hart with Hart, Barry Rosen with Communica, and Stephanie Johnston with Transcend Strategy Group. And for those that have not been on have not been on one of our webinars, our process, or logistically how this works, is I will facilitate, and if you have any questions, if you could use the chat feature. If you haven't been on Zoom, I think almost everyone in the world has by this point, but if you haven't been on Zoom, if you just hover over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat box. Click on that and it should show up. If you minimize your view, it'll show up in the right-hand column. Go ahead and ask your question there. You can ask it to everyone or you can ask it directly to me, and I will be your voice. If it's something a little more in-depth or something you feel like it needs a little back and forth, there is also a raise the hand feature. Again, if you hover down over participants and click on that, you'll see your name and there should be a raise my hand button. You can click on that. We will watch for that. Or if your question has a lot of parts to it, watch your chat box. I might reply back and just let you know that I'll call on you to ask it yourself. Everyone should be muted. Emily has that power. She makes sure that everyone stays muted, which really helps eliminate a lot of the background noise. So we ask that you kindly keep it on mute unless if we do call on you to ask a question. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. And each presenter will share about 5 to 10 minutes on their specific topic of what they're going to cover today. Tips, suggestions, things that they've been hearing from some of their clients. And again, feel free to ask the questions and I'll either ask when they're done or we'll ask at the end, depending on what it is. So I'll ask the presenter to start, when they start their section, to give a 30 seconds or so about themselves and their company as well. And we will start with Tim Sidoris with Infostream.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Tim Sidoris. I'm with Infostream. We're based out of Perrysburg. Been around for over 10 years now. Our primary focus is lead generation and websites. And today, I really wanted to talk about, some of the uncertainty moving forward. What are people interested in? Where do I go with my business? What services should we market? It's a lot of uncertainty, right? Well, Google's got all this awesome data, all this information that really helps us narrow in on where we can put our effort. So let me share my screen. So can everybody see it okay? Angie, can you see it? Okay. So the three things I want to focus on today. So a big positive note that's came as a result. So advertising on Google, the costs have decreased by 50%, okay? And the searches have increased by 20%. So what does that mean? That means that the typical cost that you would pay to advertise on Google, those ads at the top, those first three, those have reduced by 50%. And the reason is because not nearly as many people are advertising now, okay? And the searches have gone up by 20%. And this is just an average, right? It's different for every industry. But it's because that's just how people are researching now. They're spending a lot more time Googling and finding information, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is, which of my services and products are still in demand based on the new search volume? What are people still interested in? Where can I serve my market? And we can also look at what your competitors are doing in the space to see, what are they doing and what's working. So I wanted to use something that I felt was kind of relevant from a service or a product. So I know there's been some conversations of people in the group that can make face masks, right? Or have thought about it. So this is from Google Trends. This shows that the face mask search trends have just skyrocketed. And that makes sense, right? People needed face masks. So from this information, that says, wow, maybe I should build products for that or try to get found for that. But if you look at what people are actually searching for, they're looking at how to make a face mask, or how often should I use a face mask, or do face masks even work? So you don't really want to use advertising budget to get found for how to make a face mask, because these are the DIYers, the people that are making cloth masks. It's just going to be a waste of your marketing spend. But if you look at these keywords, there's one in particular that really stands out as N95. You can't really make N95 masks. They're very specific, and they're people that have a need that want to buy N95 masks. So I'm just be advised of going real fast through this because I've only got 5 or 10 minutes. So if you look at N95 masks and you plug it into the same system, you can see that that even has more search volume, quite a bit more, okay? So from there, let's look at who is actually advertising for N95 masks. So who are the successful advertisers? So if you plug it into a couple systems on the internet, the big players are there, eBay and Amazon, but there's a couple that, haven't really heard of. Bestofgoods.com appears to be one that's doing really well advertising on Google Ads for N95 masks. So you can actually, and this is all public information, you can see how much they're spending to advertise for N95 masks. So they're willing, if you type in N95 masks, there's a good chance their ad's going to come up. If you click on it, it costs $1.66, okay? And the cost is about $7,000. That's how much they're spending a month to get found for that keyword. And if you look at the search volume, right now it's 90,000 a month. I would say that's a pretty successful keyword, okay? So what ad are they using? So this is the ad that they're using. So they're talking about a multi-layer design, how it effectively filters 95%, but it really gets people's attention. What's really interesting is they're even putting the price up there. So $12.99. So in 10, 15 minutes of research, okay, what have we learned? Well, we've learned that the keyword N95 masks has a high buyer intent. That means that people want to purchase a mask. They don't want to research how to make it. It's getting 90,000 searches a month. And the main advertiser is selling them for $12.99. Can I beat that price when I sell it, or can I sell a better product? And they're spending $7,000 a month to advertise. That tells me and our group that they wouldn't be spending that unless they were making money and seeing success. So Angie, I think that's my seven minute mark. And if anybody has any questions or they need help with research, feel free to reach out to me. It doesn't take long. So any services, any products, it's a good time just to take a look at what your capabilities are and, see if the internet can help.
Thanks, Tim. And is you say the data is free from
Yes.
Google?
Yep. The majority of the data is free. There's a couple tools that you have to pay for, but I mean, they're pretty inexpensive. And it's something that my team can just, do in a few minutes.
Okay, great. All right, so Joe's going to talk to us about utilizing social media.
Hey everybody, I'm Joe Carver with Carver Media, primarily specialize in digital marketing with a heavy emphasis on social media and also website development. We've been around for about 5 years now. So I wanted to briefly go through, let me get my screen up here, sorry. All right, can everyone see that hopefully? So I want to briefly walk through how to effectively use social media to relaunch your business post-COVID-19. And we're really referring to 2019 as the year of the pivot, right? We need to make plans and make changes very fast, or we're going to get left behind. So what I've done is I've put together 5 keys to selling on social media post-COVID. The first is safety and trust. It's very important more now than ever that we effectively communicate to everyone what we're doing to keep people safe and healthy. We need to really show our audience on social what the new norm looks like. People really need to see leadership and what changes are being made. Another thing to really keep in mind is that, everybody's timeline is going to be a little bit different as to when they're feeling comfortable. What we're recommending and what we're doing for our clients is showing a very detailed step-by-step representation of what changes are being made using video or infographics. And also keep in mind that this type of messaging really needs to be done multiple times and consistently to remain effective. So there's the kind of first bullet point there. Second is communication style. This is really all about the tone of your posts. People really need to hear optimism and hope right now. Really letting clients know that you are there for them when they're ready. Some examples of this, we're open, we're here for you, we're in this together, how can we help? This type of communication and messaging, people really want to try to get their lives back to normal in some fashion. So these communication language and tone will really help to resonate with folks right now with all of the change and the negativity that's going on out there in the environment right now. Third is community. So this is really all about, existing or new partnerships that you've formed in the community, really highlighting what you're doing to help people, help the community, how your business is involved with helping getting people back on their feet, and what you're doing to represent that on a day-to-day basis. From an internal perspective, a great way to do this would be to do employee spotlights. Show your audience the people behind the products and services that you offer. It really all goes back to the fact that, at the end of the day, people are going to start engaging and buying from people that they trust. And that hasn't changed. So that's a nice way to kind of give people a behind the scenes look at who you actually employ and what they're all about. The fourth bullet is, sell responsibly. This is a very touchy situation for a lot of people right now. We were talking a little bit about this earlier. How do you engage? When do you engage? And that's going to vary depending on the vertical that you're in. But in order to do this effectively, let your potential customers know how much you value their business. Show gratitude in your communication. Communicate how their business is helping to employ people in the community. If you can, offer discounts to frontline workers. Another strategy could be, consider, if possible, offering flexible payment options or financing. You just need to come up with a plan that you're comfortable with and start moving forward with it. And at the end of the day, people understand and realize that business must go on. And lastly here is provide value, to your clients. This is a great time to educate your audience around your area of expertise, give them advice or offer tips. From a social media perspective, offer exclusive promotions or offerings to your followers and your audience. Really give people a reason to like and follow your page. So those are kind of 5 bullets. I went obviously as quickly as possible. To get through everything within a 5-minute time period or so. But, you could really take any of these 5 keys and build an entire social media campaign around one of these 5 points. But I wanted to try to keep it as general as possible in the hopes that somebody could, have a key takeaway. And lastly, I just wanted to briefly touch on a couple of best practices. So understanding which social media platform is right for you is crucial. And also understanding messaging. Just because a post or a message may resonate on Facebook doesn't mean it's going to work on LinkedIn and vice versa. So that's very important. And to talk a little bit about campaigns as a whole, social media ads absolutely must, need to be a part of those campaigns and strategies. As Tim mentioned, we're seeing the same thing on social media. Viewership is way up, right? People are home, they're on their phone, they're on their electronic devices, and demand for ads, as far as dollar amounts, it has slid down. So over the last 60 days or so, we've seen great results with very high ROI for our clients, as it relates to social media ads and spend. So if anybody has any questions outside of the group, here's my contact information, my cell phone, my email, and I'd be happy to help in any way possible. So I really appreciate everybody's time, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. A few questions. What is the most, or are there more effective platforms to use? And have you seen something kind of a platform emerge during this time?
So the answer to that question really depends on the vertical that you're in, right? So very general B2C is, Facebook and Instagram. A B2B is, a LinkedIn play. So it's really taking a look at the platform and understanding the audience around that platform, and what your goals and your strategies are for the campaigns themselves, really dictates the platforms that we go after from a social perspective. The second part of the question, I think, in my opinion, a lot of us we've all heard of TikTok, right? And we're like, oh yeah, it's for teenagers, and it's a bunch of kids on TikTok just dancing around. And I've spent a fair amount of time on TikTok doing some research, and just paying attention. And the game is changing. There's celebrity there. That's something that we're really keeping a close eye on for the right client. I think that platform is going to start to make a lot of sense. And I don't think TikTok's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, so that might answer the next question, which was, what is the next up and coming one that we might not know about yet?
Yeah, I would say TikTok is probably where it's at moving forward. Just with the platform itself and video, I should have mentioned in the beginning of this that, video is the preferred method to communicate via social media. It still gets the best organic reach and traffic. And, we all have a really good video camera, i.e. our phone in our pocket every single day. So I really encourage people to get out there and to start posting using video and communicating with their clients and potential clients, especially now. People need to see you. We're all in silos, and you really need to get out there.
Okay, good. One more question. Oh, nope, I think I already asked that one. So, or any industries that have surprised you? Do you think maybe that's where TikTok falls?
Industries meaning, I guess I don't understand the question.
I'm guessing platforms. Social media
Pardon me?
platforms.
Oh,
I'm going
which
to guess
platforms?
social media platforms. I'm guessing it says any new industries that surprised you. I'm going to guess.
Yeah, from a platform, I would probably say TikTok. Industry-wise, I think there's value for every industry in the right space with the right messaging. You got to have and in order to do this effectively, you need to have a plan and a strategy put in place. And again, social media is one part of an overall marketing campaign, but it's an important part. So I think just having a plan and a strategy and setting expectations and goals is really the way to go with social, in my opinion.
So I got a little clarification. What are there certain industries that social media works better for?
From my personal experience, I haven't seen a certain industry that does better than others. It's the actual people. It's the product at the end of the day. It's the content and the messaging that people are putting out there. And again, understanding what platform to use for your industry. I haven't, I don't see, are there nuances and differences within industries, maybe where social media would weigh or have a little bit more attention? Absolutely. But I haven't run into an industry where it doesn't exist. you have to think about consumers a little bit, consumer behavior. You know, they're going to hit your website, and then the majority of them are going to go check you out on social. And if there's a disconnect there with messaging, look, feel, all of the marketing components, you may lose that person. You know, if you go to their website, you got this wonderful looking website, and then they hop over to your LinkedIn profile or your Facebook page, and there's a huge disconnect. That can be a problem.
Okay, thanks. I have kids that are at the TikTok age, so it's for me to see some of the different companies are getting really creative with how they're using it. It's been
Yeah,
really fun to watch.
yeah, absolutely. It's changing.
Okay, great. I will pass it next to Mike.
Thank you.
Can you see that, Angie?
Not yet.
Hold on. Let me realign it. You see it now?
Not yet.
All right, bear with me. My mouse is acting up. There we go.
Okay. Now we're good.
All right. I'm embarrassed to tell you, Joe, I picked up TikTok through this pandemic, and I'm sitting in the family room checking that out, and I'm having a blast with it. So it's quite a platform. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Mike Hart. I'm CEO of Hart. I'm the second generation. We've been around 50 some years, and happy to be with you today. Been a member of this organization for a long time. Was on the board years ago, and it's great things that Angie and her team are doing. So happy to be with you. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the consumer and evolving consumer values, and dug a little bit into this. Some of these slides I think are pretty obvious, but we looked at what Bloomberg wrote, and I don't think any of these stats are going to be hugely surprising to you, but through COVID-19 or these pandemic times, as consumers, obviously things are changing a lot. No surprise to you, but 73% of people say the view of their world has changed greatly. Certainly that speaks to a lot of us. 98% of people have undertaken some new practice or postponed or canceled plans or purchases. Certainly no surprise again. And I think probably more so, 90% report enduring changes in expectations and behaviors. Now that does speak to all of us in our businesses, services, and products after the pandemic ends. So people are going to change how they buy our products and how they buy our services. And that's most important as we evolve how we speak to our consumers. So it's changing consumer values, and it's ultimately going to guide buying decisions as many of us deal with financial stress, social stress, emotional and mental health stress. So I think these are stats that speak directly to us, and many of us are family businesses. 34% would pay more for local products, which I found really interesting. This was from a recent study by PR Newswire. 25% would pay more for trusted brands. And I find no brands more trusted than those that are run by family business organizations. And 23% would pay more for ethical products. And as this evolves even more, 42% of consumers believe, and I think this is pretty obvious, but will believe the way they shop will fundamentally change. It's happened already. And we can talk about how our shopping habits have changed even in the last 8 or 9 weeks. So how are we going to adapt to that change? We're going to give you 4 points of view that we think are going to help you authentically speak to your customers, especially if you're a B2C marketer. So which values are most important to my brand's primary audiences? And this, I know Barry's going to speak to you in a minute on the B2B side, but I think this speaks more to the consumer side, but I think it can speak a little bit to both. What's important to your consumer? How do their values shape their behavior? And how do those values influence the relationship? So I won't dive deep into personas, but just like when I built this speech, I got online, did some secondary research. You can do the same with your customers, or you can do a little research study, which I'll speak to in a minute. Analyze your values of your customers, where they were 10 weeks ago, where they are today, and then revisit your customer's buying journey, which I'm happy to talk to you about offline. And have those values in your consumer evolved in response to the global pandemic? Most likely, sure they have. How's your audience priorities changed? I mean, think about restaurants, right? Think about retailers. In response to the new social, emotional, or financial situation, and how might that those values that have changed evolve how we speak to our customers, depending on what business you're in. And I know we've got many different businesses out there. What we've done with many of our customers, just done a quick research to our customers to say, where were you at 8 weeks ago and where you're at today? And I don't care what business you're in, you can do a Survey Monkey, you can hire a research company, you can do an email survey, but many of our customers' values have changed greatly, and how they're going to shop for your end product is going to change greatly. And then how do we adapt to how customers have changed? So how can your brand address the new needs of your customers, and what are they looking for from your brand and moving forward? So you might need to revise your positioning a little bit, might need to reestablish your brand values, and we need to address how customers are thinking today about your brand compared to how they were thinking about it 8 or 10 weeks ago. And then what type of experiences can my brand create to reflect those values? We've got a restaurant that's in with real close to our neighborhood, and their business was up 15% by people driving into their front door and picking up. And when he first, the general manager of this restaurant first dealt with this pandemic, he freaked out, thought he was going to go out of business. And many restaurants have dealt with this in a really tough way, but he evolved to the values of what the customer was looking for, decided a new way to deliver, decided what was going to resonate with that customer. Many of our businesses are dealing with these changing values. So evaluate your new positioning, reflect what's going on in consumers' values, and how it's going to impact all of us. And this is easy for me to say last because many of us did, but don't freak out, don't panic. Many of us have been here as family businesses for a long time. We pray to God we're going to be here tomorrow, but things are changing in the consumer marketplace, and we have to address those things. There's lots of stuff on our website. We've been using social, like Joe talked about, throughout this whole pandemic, and speaking to our customers, whether it's working from home, whether it's a happiness guide, or there's lots of different stuff. And one of our blogs spoke to this very subject. So I'm happy to speak to you about it a little bit more if I can, but just a little bit of a perspective on how we can speak to the consumer. So happy to be with you today, and look forward to hearing from Barry and Stephanie.
Thanks, Mike. I had a question. What are some of the creative, out-of-the-box ways that you've seen businesses respond in terms of operations?
Social, Joe talked about it earlier, but social and content has been one of the ways that I think people have regularly spoken to their customers, because you can do it quickly. So I think we've used a lot of social, a lot of, I hate to use the words, but down and dirty video to communicate with customers pretty regularly. So, but social has been a great platform, social and content.
Thanks. I don't know if any of the other panelists have seen anything different or unique or out of the box that they wanted to add. Okay, then we will, that was the question. So we will pass it over now to Barry to discuss business to business.
Good. Well, hello, everyone. I'm going to trust that you can see my screen now. Somebody could confirm that, that'd be awesome. It is great to be here. You know, I'm with Communica, and we've been around for about 30 years, actually celebrating 30 years this year. Full service agency. We do, you know, anything that relates to marketing and integrating the marketing with sales functions of the business. While we do a wide range of types of businesses, we do have a high concentration in B2B, which is what I'm going to speak about here. A lot of digital, a lot of video work. So really what I've tried to focus on here is the things that we're seeing that have changed that are going to linger, the ones that are going to have a long-lasting impact. You know, running a business is always involved in the need to change, and this just happens to be kind of a big and really sudden change. So let's look at the things that have that kind of lasting power in the B2B world. We think that there's things that are going to change the way buyers buy. And because of that, that has to change the way that sellers sell. So while none of us are looking to capitalize on the pandemic, this quote from Winston Churchill really kind of resonates. Never let a good crisis go to waste. You know, the silver lining here, I think, is that we've got an opening for smart marketing to better attract, better engage, better develop customers. And in particular, it's an opportunity to get out in front of competition who may not be adapting as well. So in our time today, I want to highlight a couple of changes we see to the landscape and review some of the actions you can take to put yourself in a position to succeed. The first is clearly this shift from physical to virtual. You know, we've all incorporated virtual ways of doing business during the crisis, like the discussion we're having right now. But a lot of these aspects are going to stay with us. So as marketers, we have to understand that and respond accordingly. These are the things that we see being long-term changes. First of all, physical events like trade shows and road shows or on-site product demos, they're off the table for now. And given that the typical B2B company has about 30 to 40% of their marketing budget devoted to those events, it's kind of a big deal. So marketing teams have to find ways to replace that impact. We think this goes beyond just this year. The physical events will come back, but when they do, there's going to be a segment, I mean, perhaps fairly significant segment of the audience that have found that these kinds of remote connectivity allows them to get what they need. And there's educators and vendors out there who may have done a really great job of mastering virtual delivery that they can rely on. So B2B companies need to incorporate virtual events into their arsenal. These can include full-scale conferences, maybe that are put on by trade associations, or they could be self-organized webinars or educational courses. And regardless, the takeaway for us here today, I think, is that virtual events involve some skills that are different from the ones that B2B companies have honed over the years regarding their physical events. So to be effective with virtual events, marketers are going to need to step up their game in a couple areas. One of those is database development. An accurate database is really one of the more powerful weapons that a sales and marketing organization has, but information gets old fast and people change jobs and customers expand, prospects change suppliers, new businesses and connections come about, and that's going to be particularly the case as we come through this time. So in fact, research shows us that about 25% of the average B2B database is just inaccurate. So paying attention to database cleaning is a big to-do on the B2B marketing list. Managing engagement, attracting attendees and generating qualified leads. You know, marketers are going to need to develop the workflow and the assets like emails and landing pages and registration forms. And they're going to need to use tools, whether it be things like marketing automation or social media platforms like Joe was talking about or Tim was mentioning. Those are all going to be more important to distribute and amplify the message in the virtual world. And lead nurturing. Post-event interaction has always been critical for physical events, but it's really been an area that B2B companies struggle with a lot. Oftentimes we see post-event conversations and engagement is left to the individual sales reps, and that can result in gaps and inconsistencies. Some will, some won't. Virtual events are going to demand that marketing pay more attention to that kind of interaction. You have to orchestrate that interaction with leads by creating and delivering ongoing and relevant touch points. So planning content, for example, and developing that kind of content is an essential component for going forward. And marketing automation and other technology tools will help you with the mechanics. So the shift from physical to virtual affects more than just trade show and events, of course. And there's not much disagreement among the prognosticators that in-person face-to-face selling will be affected long-term. Certainly the travel restrictions play into that, but it's also evident that we're finding effective options for remote selling being an efficient option. We're working with a client right now that has typically shied away from things like virtual sales meetings and online ordering and remote selling options, but now they've kind of been forced into it. So they're asking us to help them upgrade their entire remote selling toolkit, because they see it as being a kind of permanent part of their sales process, even when things do return to normal. So this is some data from McKinsey that backs this up. B2B buyers surveyed a few weeks ago weighted the importance of digital interactions almost twice as heavily as they did traditional interactions, as opposed to before COVID, when the digital traditional weighting was about equal. So for B2B, this means focusing on rich digital experiences across the entire buyer's process. I'm going to kind of play into some of the things that were talked about earlier already, but if you haven't already done so, now is really the time to take a hard look at your website and other digital assets like your blog or social media platforms. You've really got to make sure that they're effectively serving your audiences as they go about their research and evaluation stages. And this was mentioned earlier too, but look at your use of video. Video in B2B was already ramping up well before COVID, but now it's essential as buyers really have less opportunity to see your product, meet your people, all of that. Again, some McKinsey data underscores the point. This shows the massive shift in B2B's preference for self-service channels, the buyer's preference. And again, this was taken before COVID, so it's only gotten stronger since then. You can see that from 2016 to 2019, the preference for self-service in the research phase flipped from about a 2-to-1 preference for directed interactions to 2-to-1 preference for digital self-serve interactions. And that, while in the evaluation phase, the preference increased 120% during that time. So for B2B companies, this kind of signifies that marketing teams ought to be thinking about everything from presentation platforms to website content and functionality to even integration with back-end systems like ERP. No question, buyers are relying on digital interactions more than ever, and they have higher expectations than ever. So the harsh reality is that they'll be quick to move away from companies that don't deliver on that. I want to call the next shift the intensification of trust. This was touched on earlier by Joe and Mike as well, and I think that it flows through all of our conversations here. It's really describing another key factor that we see as having a lasting impact. Of course, trust has always been important. It's just exacerbated now. On the consumer level, we see this play out in an explosion of familiar brands. Campbell's Soup is up 59% after years of steady decline. But for B2B, this will be both a response to a weakened economy. Buyers want to make sure they're doing business with a company that's going to be around, but also a reflection of the emotional, we're in this together mindset that we've been living with. So here are the tools we're focusing on to help B2B marketers strengthen their trust. First is content. Crisis has put a premium on authenticity and helpfulness, and that's been talked about by a couple of the others as well. Customers don't want you to sell them, they want you to help them buy. And that means anticipating what information they need at various points along their journey and connecting them to useful, educational, maybe even thought-provoking insight. You've been seeing this play out throughout the crisis as we all join in on a wave of webinars and research reports and that over the last several weeks. Personalization is something that is really going to be more and more important as the market shifts to digital interaction even more. B2B buyers are going to be demanding the same kind of personalization that they've been getting from their consumer buying. So they're trained now. If Amazon or Netflix can make it this easy for me to get what I want, then so should my business vendors. So we don't have time to get to it on this call, but this is where B2B marketers need to be investing in ABM, account-based marketing, and technologies that recognize the buyer, their company, their industry, even their behaviors, and use that insight to deliver personalized experiences. That will go a long way towards strengthening trust. Community relations, this was mentioned, Mike talked a little bit about this on the consumer side, but however the B2B organization defines their community, whether it be regionally or by industry or common cause, buyers certainly are placing more value on companies that are engaged in their community. And again, we see that play out on the consumer side. How many of us are giving preference to restaurants that are locally owned to take out from, or supporting companies that we have learned are doing positive things? Well, the same thing's true in B2B. And that means that a more proactive public and community relations programs are going to be more important. And visibility. It's a fact that B2B companies have cut their marketing budgets in a crisis. This certainly has been no exception during this time. And this may sound a little self-serving, but I assure you that there's a ton of research from previous times of crisis or economic downturns that has documented the fortunes of companies that remain visible versus the ones that didn't. So kind of a last message is, to the extent you're able to invest in your visibility, you should definitely be doing so. Like a lot of people, we believe the COVID crisis is kind of an inflection point with lasting effects. We also believe it presents opportunities. So if you're interested, we've been publishing a weekly marketing digest since the beginning of the crisis. If you're interested in being added to that list, just let me know. My information's on the screen. So thanks very much. Great talking to all of you.
Good. Thanks, Barry. Lots of great data. I do have a few questions. The first one, and maybe Mike can chime in too, on the B2B and the B2C side, where should people be investing their marketing dollars aside from social media to get the best bang for the buck?
Well, I think that, and Tim mentioned this and I think Joe mentioned it as well, in terms of the cost being down in the social media platforms. Well, the same is true in other areas, whether it be trade publishers or the like. There's costs are down. Now's a buyer's market as it relates to that. But I think that's on the media side. I think that if you're on the B2B side, investing in your connectivity to your customers, whether it be through what we call funnel management, which is really the process of communicating and nurturing those leads you have through their buying process. It's not media expenditures, but it's investment in technology, it's investment in content, it's investment in process. We think that's where there's a huge payoff as well.
And I don't, Barry, that was answered really well, but I don't know that there's a great answer to that. Media costs are down, just like what a couple of the other guys said about the cost of social and online as well. But it really depends on who the customer is you're trying to reach and how you're trying to reach them. And so just to give a broad-based answer to what the easiest or best way is, every consumer is different, every customer is different, and it depends on what, the journey, and it's really not just a one answer fits all. So the way we reach customers is a lot cheaper, but how we would reach them would depend on who the customer is and what we're trying to accomplish. So I hesitate just give a broad-based answer.
I totally agree with that, Mike. I think it really depends on, you need to be knowing your customers right now. You need to be very, very intimate with your customers and closely related to your clients and what's going on in their worlds. And you can do some degree of heavy pattern matching based on, a handful of conversations with your client base, with your customer base, and what they're feeling, what they're looking for. Use that intel and act on it.
The one place that we've seen our business impact the most is media. That's where our expenditures are dramatically impacted. But PR, crisis, social, some of our creative areas are still relatively busy. So, people aren't necessarily spending money on media, even though some of the costs, like Barry said, are well off. But it's just, what you're trying to accomplish for that customer. So not a great answer, but depends on who you're trying to reach.
So along those lines,
If I could too, forgive me, I emailed Angie, but I've got and I don't, Steffi, I hate to miss your comments, but I've got another engagement at noon. So at some point I'm going to step off in the middle of your comments. So I apologize for that, because I'm looking forward to hearing them. But if you see me disappear, it's not being rude.
No problem.
thank you. But along the lines of what we were talking about, how can we best maintain relationships with customers or suppliers who are currently shut down and maybe indefinitely?
Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
There's not a better time to have a phone call. Not a better time to have a phone call. I mean, people are craving connection, and and even if you don't know what to say, just say, "How are you?" Start with humanity. It's time to let your humanity show and connect with people, through your humanity. Whether it's their kids are graduating college and apprehensive, whether they're nervous about going out into the world and going to a restaurant, just connect with them as you are, and let that be the gateway to more intel.
Stephanie's absolutely right, and I would add that what we're finding is that people are a little easier to reach, perhaps in some cases, than they have been under normal circumstances. And just yesterday, I had a 2.5 hour virtual meeting with a client that we've been trying to get together for months on this topic, that they just haven't had the block of time to be able to devote. So yesterday, we got everybody together. It was, had a good long conversation about what we needed to talk about. So I think people are welcoming that kind of conversation because they're missing it, but they also aren't quite as tied up in other things.
The one, I'm sure a bunch of you have read this story, but my favorite line I've read through this whole thing is, we're all in the same boat, we're not in the same storm. And whether it's customers or it's friends or it's suppliers, whoever it is that we speak to, Stephanie, you hit it on the head. The one thing that I've tried to do is to our staff and to my buddies and to, friends that we're with and to customers, is just send notes or pick up the phone and call, because communications, that's a business that all of us are in. And my dad told me when I was younger, it's easy to call somebody that can do something for you. It's more important to call when they can't. So we've tried to maintain contact with everybody, even if their business is decimated and they're not doing anything with us. We're all hurting, right? It's just the level of what we're hurting. And you don't know what boat people are in and what storm they're in. I have some friends that have been really, really decimated by this, and some friends whose businesses are doing great, and everywhere in between. So, and family businesses, I think we even feel that pain a little bit more because we share some similar stories. So that story has stuck with me well. And I think, Stephanie, you hit it on the head. We got to just talk to people and watch a little Netflix and do a little TikTok too. Doesn't hurt either. So.
That's very true. Thanks.
Yeah.
And on that note, I've seen a lot of center members through these Zoom meetings that I haven't seen in years or haven't been able to connect with. So that's been there are some silver linings and some bright sides to this. So, okay, great. Have you seen anything creative with virtual events for things like shopping or food services, or things that don't maybe lend itself as well to virtual? We all miss our samples at Costco and all that stuff.
There's been a lot of live streaming taking place, which is, a little different. That, you know, it was around, but there's more use of it on the B2B side, particularly in situations where you can't demo a product, right? Got a client that sells heavy machinery, and they can't exactly show it at a trade show, and they can't bring people into their plant right now. So we're doing some things with live streaming so they can demo that their product and have those kind of conversations. So you know, video in all its forms is really part of that answer.
We do virtual get-togethers every week as a staff, and we've got a small staff in Columbus and a staff here. And I make it a point every month to drive to Columbus just to visit our team. And I found that our Columbus and Toledo team, for those of you that have multiple offices, aren't as well connected as they should be. And now, because of this, everybody's seeing what we're seeing today. And the folks from Columbus are getting better connected with the people from Toledo and vice versa because of Zoom. And that's true with customers as well because of Zoom. So there's people in multiple offices that used to be on a speakerphone, but now we're seeing each other. And there's been some benefits that have come out of this, as painful as it is. And
I'll add that it even creates some new product opportunities. We've been working with a client on, you know, they have service technicians that, you know, a big part of their business is fixing and maintaining the equipment that they sell. And they can't get their techs on the road, and you know, their customers don't necessarily want the people from the outside coming into their floor. So we're working with them on developing a remote technical product, and it's along the lines of telemedicine, like a doctor, like you might have a doctor's appointment, and we're creating a whole kind of product line around that that they can monetize. So
don't judge me by this, I'm Irish, but the Visa people thought that I literally died because I have no charges on my Visa card anymore. But the guy at the Kroger's liquor store knows me by name, so.
Oh, that's great. All right, well, we will pass it on to Stephanie next. And thank you, Mike, for joining us. And I will let everyone know, too, we did record this and we'll send the video out. And I'm sure if you had any other questions for Mike, I can certainly facilitate that and pass it on. So,
Stephanie, sorry, I'm going to miss you.
Oh, no worries. Good to see you, Mike. Take care.
Everybody.
All right. Thanks so much, folks. I'm honored to be with you. I'm Stephanie Johnston, President CEO of Transcend Strategy Group. Our core focus is on the senior care market. We work on increasing referrals, elevating quality, and improving patient experience through marketing, communications, and operational design. So our focus is a little bit more specialized in the senior care space than my colleagues, and quite a talented cohort here that you've had today. So I'm honored to be among them. But the reason why I am here is because of my personal passion around measurement and data. So I am a self-proclaimed data geek, and I live very much in the data world, whether that's insights to influence action and strategy, or whether that's measuring the impact. Our business model is built on ROI generation, measurable ROI generation for our clients. So measurement is how we get paid. So it matters considerably in our business model. But I'm glad to share with you a little bit today some key elements of measurement that I think are really critical for businesses right now. But I will expand just ever so briefly on something that Barry and Mike and in particular mentioned. But you know, I'm going to take Mike's little thing about don't panic and say, edit it a little bit and say, don't panic, innovate, use this time. Barry shared with you and Joe shared with you some key themes that your market wants to hear from you right now. And these are needs from your audience, whether they should be highly nuanced based on the industry that you're in, but overall everybody's craving trust, connection, credibility, and control. So how are you going to step into that space to meet your clients where they are? That's something that I'd strongly encourage you guys to think about. As I mentioned, measurement, my passion. I spent half my career on the client side in organizations, and then the other half in consultancies and agencies like the one that I run right now. So the first thing that I would say is, if you didn't pick up on it right away from what Tim was sharing with you, there's more that can be measured now than ever before. And there's a ton of really great free intel that exists out there on the industry that you're going after. So first and foremost, use that. Be mindful of all the free resources that exist out there and use that, because measurement can do so much to help you choose the right path for your organization based on your client mix, et cetera, and your client's needs. The key isn't just throwing more tactics at things. I hope you're taking that away from this conversation. It's not about being in a particular platform where the audience is. It's about adding value and then measuring how you convert on that value with your target audience. So build out a dashboard that reflects your business strategic goals. And don't try to boil the ocean. Focus on things that are directly relevant to your clients. How do you give your customer base a greater sense of control in the products and services that you offer? How do you amplify your credibility? How do you showcase your humanity and authenticity? The standard is really low right now for slick and polished and produced, and nobody expects you to get it 100% right. They want to see you try. So use this time to act, to innovate in your business, innovate in your marketing, but don't wait for the market to improve to start marketing, or put a pause on your communication with your prospect base, because they are craving these things from you right now. The first point is, there's a lot more that can be measured than you ever thought. The second point is measurement takes time to get it right. You should be building out measurement dashboard that uses marketing, communications, operations, KPIs to help tie back to ROI, and top line revenue creation and expense reduction and all those great things. But you're not going to get it right out of the park. So if you think that you're going to put, your free Google Analytics platform in place behind your website, and all of a sudden you're going to see, yep, we're doing it right, 100% valid. There's no changes that we need to make, and we keep rolling. But no, that the measurement tool, first and foremost, shouldn't be telling you what you're doing right. It should be telling you how you can get better. Measurement goes right in hand in hand with a continuous improvement methodology, or to put it in the way you're hearing it on social media today, a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Use a growth mindset when it comes to measurement, because you should constantly be improving the way that you measure your efforts, so that you can continue to refine the work that you're doing and use it to be influenced by what is going on with your customer and target audience base. One of the trends, it's a kitschy little thing, and again, I don't want to throw out tactics for the sake of tactics, but some organizations are having a lot of success going back to mail, to direct mail. Please don't take that as gospel to go out and start doing direct mail campaigns. Again, know your customer first, know your client base first, know where their mindset is, and know how you can create trust, credibility, and control for them right now, senses of that through your organization. The last piece that I would add is to find an expert that you connect well with and tap their expertise. There is a reason why none of us build our own buildings, none of us engineer our own cars, none of us conduct our own surgeries. We trust experts to do that for us. And I'm not saying you got to go out and build a big budget and hire, a huge team, or hire one of us to help you with it, but know what you know and trust expertise to help you get there. And that expertise doesn't have to be, like I said, a big investment. It can be just finding a trusted advisor who can help mentor and guide you through the process. And as I said before, my focus is in a very specific industry, but if there's help that I can provide, I'm glad to do it. And I'll share my screen with my contact information. If there's anything that I can advise on, especially if you're in the senior care space, if you're in healthcare space that heavily focused on seniors, I've got a ton of research I could share with you. We've been doing weekly research projects on how COVID-19 is impacting consumer expectations and impressions of senior care and senior care providers and suppliers in the industry. So feel free to email me if there's data you'd like to dig into and recommendations you'd like to dig into. Otherwise, if you just want some advice on how to build a measurement dashboard or what good looks like or where to start, give me a shout. I'm glad to offer any help that I can. The mantra in our team at this time has been first add value. And my organization, my team, we've been so lucky to benefit from the expertise of so many of you all. And I want to pay that back and pay that forward. So if there's anything I can do to help you out, please don't hesitate to reach out. And that's all I have for you today.
I love your title.
Thanks.
So if your business isn't essentially doing any measurement, where's a good place to start?
Yeah, a great place to start is with your Google Analytics, making sure that it's operational behind your website. And Google Analytics should really first and foremost, just start by looking at your traffic, who's coming to your website, who's engaging with your social media content. If you can just look at the who of things and focus on the who and the why before the what, the who and the why will inform what the what should be anyway. So I encourage you to think about it through that lens first and foremost, and then layer in over time the what. And the what, you hear marketers talk a lot about keyword density and keyword concepts and findability and trackability, and those things are really important concepts. But if you're just getting started, start with a good platform where you can just monitor and listen and see what's going on before you take a lot of action. Again, don't confuse not taking action on your measurement with taking action in this market. This is the time to take risks, to act boldly, and to connect with your customers and add value any way that you can.
Okay, great. So now I have a question for you, and then any of the panelists can chime in. We've talked a lot about content and getting good content out there. If that's not something you're used to doing, content can seem scary and overwhelming, and I'm not a good writer, or I'm not interesting, or I don't know if what I'm doing is interesting. Any tips on how to tackle that?
Yeah. One of the things, any expertise, any industry that's an expert industry, we have a tendency to have our own little buzzwords that can sound like barriers to access and barriers to action. And it's important to break down those concepts into what they really mean. So when you're thinking about content, think about it more as like conversation. We all have conversation with our customers. We all have conversation with our employees. When we're publishing content, whether that's a blog post or content through our website or social media, video, whatever the platform is, platform's not the important part. When it comes to getting used to crafting content, the key element is treat it like a conversation. Treat it like I have this much space or this much time to add value to that audience. What can I say to that audience that's going to add value to them, that's going to make them want to lean in and connect more meaningfully, connect more deeply with what I have to offer the world. And we all have built businesses or are building businesses, so we're used to having value-based conversations or value-driven conversations with the people that we serve. So let that same mantra that, if you were picking up the phone to call your 5 best customers, let that be your guide in creating content.
I would add to that you really want to be answering the questions that you think your customers are asking or are likely to be asking. So talking to your sales staff, talking to your customer service staff, talking to your customers, like Stephanie was saying, and really trying to understand what's on their mind. What do they want to know more about? That's the kind of thing you should, if you've got some expertise that can weigh in on that, then that's what you should be thinking about for your content. So it is the format is doesn't really matter. You can write something and then repurpose it as a video or repurpose it as a infographic or lots of different ways to execute it. But it's really, what is it that is going to resonate with your customers? And one final thing is that kind of insight that they're looking for changes based on where they're at in their buying cycle. So and their role in that cycle. So somebody at the beginning of the buying cycle, when they're first trying to understand what their business issues are and trying to frame that, they have different questions on their mind than as they go through it. And now they've talked to some people and they've identified certain solutions that might apply. And now they want to see it, how it might apply a little bit more directly to them. Different kinds of content they're looking for. Same with the perspective. If they're the financial buyer, who's interested in the ROI, that's one perspective. If they're the user of the product or service, then they're going to have other questions on their mind. So really understanding that, the more deeper you dive into it, the more topics you'll come up with that will lead you to great content.
So my input, Stephanie really nailed it when it comes to like analytics. If you look at the analytics on your site, and these tools years ago were kind of scary, like they weren't easy to use, but they're just getting easier and easier. But you can see, what are people searching to find you? Where are they spending time on their site? What are they reading? Like you can even record people that visit your site. They read with their mouse, and you can watch them read your website, and they'll circle something that they think is interesting, and they'll go back and they'll read it. Or they'll go to something that they really don't like, and they'll go up and they'll click the X, and you'll see it close. Another great method is, what I covered earlier with the Google search trends. You can type in a keyword that might be relevant to your business and see how people are using it. What kind of questions are they asking about your service or your product? And you can see how many people are asking that question. And that tells you that there needs to be an answer. People are looking for an answer. And if you're a subject expert, you should answer it.
Yeah.
So.
And even just to benchmark, right, Tim? I mean, even if you're just going to sit on the sidelines and watch for a little bit and see how the trend line moves on those search terms, just paying attention and listening to those things for a while is really smart. I also want to give another shout out to Barry, because he mentioned one of my favorite 3-letter acronyms right now, which is ABM. Account-based marketing is such a powerful tool, and it's going to be incredibly powerful for B2B over the coming months. Again, it's a 3-letter acronym that is very, very technical sounding in the marketing space, but it's really super duper human and accessible. And we don't have time to really dig into it here, but find an expert and ask them all about it, because it really is going to be the future of the industry.
Okay. I had a question. What about podcast? Is that still a popular form of marketing? Are there any tips if you wanted to start one?
Yeah, I'll jump in. We definitely see it as a more viable element than ever. It is, there's more interest in it. There's more people that are listening to podcasts regularly. So yeah, it's definitely an area that, again, back to Stephanie's point earlier, that if it fits your audience and if you're bringing relevance to that, then it is something worth investigating. What I like about it, in addition to just having kind of over the transom people find your podcast, is that the people that you're currently engaged with in some manner, whether they be current customers or prospects, having that podcast and being able to, send them an email and say, hey, thought you might like the latest episode of our podcast. It just reinforces that connection with them and promotes you as being maybe a step ahead of others they might be talking to.
Yeah, the key there is twofold. Either you have, I completely agree with everything Barry just said. I just add on to it is that the key is two elements of content there. Either you have to have something that's really valuable that you're going to say as the host or facilitator of the podcast, something really valuable, really insightful, really additive, and not even a tad bit self-promotional. Or you have to have really attractive guests on your podcast that they want to lean in and listen to.
Thank you. And Roger sent me a comment that it's a great time for every company to assess their company's sales process and compare to today's approach, which I think is great. Do you see any shifts or changes or trends happening there?
Well, I think that all the things that are changing that we've talked about here the last hour are absolutely going to affect the sales process. You know, the direct sales team that won't have as much access physically to their customers or prospects, they will have to, marketing is going to have to play a bigger role in the lead development side, and in particular in that lead nurturing side. So whereas one of the kind of issues, at least on the B2B side, has, you know, marketing has been tasked with, you know, you bring in the leads and get our name out there, and then the leads that come in get thrown over to the salespeople. And I mentioned this earlier, that really results in this kind of chasm that does, where leads go to die. So how that gets addressed is most definitely going to affect the sales process. Salespeople like to go to the flickering light, right? They like to make deals. So earlier stage opportunities where they're not as ready to buy, where the customer's not as ready to buy, salespeople can lose interest pretty quickly. And so marketing's got to play a broader role in that conversation, moving them through the sales cycle. So yes, that is part and parcel of what the tomorrow's sales process looks like. It's only getting exacerbated by what we're going through now.
Yeah, I 100% agree. That's that three-letter acronym that we've thrown out a couple times now with ABM is really about the pivot for sales from, especially when you've got heavy face-to-face. If you're relying on trade shows for 30 to 40% of your lead gen new business, if you're relying on some industries, they rely on cookie delivery. So I've got clients that, you know, they're used to in the healthcare space, they're used to walking into a skilled nursing center with a plate full of cookies and everybody being really excited to see them, and that being a key element in their relationship management. That's a thing of the past. And so you have to find surrogates that can digitally recreate those very emotional, authentic, and human experiences. And digital is one component of it for sure, but it's going to be probably the beefier component of marketing budgets going forward, is creating human, authentic, and rich experiences that you might have over that plate of cookies, where you get to talk a little bit about how things are going in virtual ways. And that's one of the things I love about ABM, is because it creates this progressive capability that follows the sales funnel, and a high degree of personalization with, again, that rich data that geeks like me just eat up.
Stephanie, there's a question directed to you. What tool do you use for dashboard building? And then
yeah. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
That's it. And then distribution was the second part.
Yeah. So for dashboard, the start, again, I'm going to go back to the start. If you're getting out of the gate, start with your Google Analytics. Make sure it's plugged in and set up correctly, and be listening and monitoring your performance in that place, because you're going to be able to hear and see what's working well in the foundation of the house. And your website really is the foundation of your house. Like Joe and Tim were saying earlier, like, make sure the foundation is strong before you start building on it with activating your marketing. Make sure that that foundation is strong so that you can build on it. So we have Google Analytics as our foundation, and then we've added on over time with some tools, some of which are custom, some of which are very industry specific to the industries that we serve. But where we're able to get to now, as I mentioned before, with our ability to go clear to ROI, is that we've got some non-digital techniques that we can use to be able to do some call tracking, to be able to do lead monitoring. Lead scoring is a concept a lot of people are really familiar with. That's part of it, a little bit passe, but still those techniques can be used, but there's some tools that are built on top of it. And some of those tools that are really widely accessible, again, I'm going to throw out two other acronyms that marketers love: CRM, Customer Relationship Management Tool, which just lets you see, hey, this database of names we have out here, who are they, where are they going, and what are they consuming, and when are they converting, taking the next step in our process. And then the other element of it is a marketing automation tool or sales automation tool that helps you be able to bring more of a regimented manner to your marketing systems and your proactive communication system. So I'm sorry I'm not giving you a full complete answer, because some of it's like super secret sauce, but I would say if you start with the Google Analytics and build on it over time, you'll find that you're able to get to some really smart stuff. And, you know, if you've got Google Analytics on one end of the spectrum and you've got your smart, specific, measurable, achievable, you know, goals on the other end, you can build a nice linear path between the two. And data, Barry had me saying a big amen over here on the data aspect, making sure your databases are clean, making sure that you've got good, strong use of all the data that you're already collecting as an organization, that you're cleaning that up and making that actionable. Another point on data, and then I'll shut up, sorry, I'm passionate about my data, is that data equals IP. So if you're thinking about, you know, succession planning in your organization, if you're thinking about transition, or you're thinking about selling your business, the more intellectual property that you can construct within your organization, the better. And a lot of y'all have data, so don't just think about intellectual property as your patented designs. Think about your intellectual property as the data that you've built in your business over decades.
I can kind of add, so again, 10 years ago, you'd have to hire a developer to build your own dashboards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now these niche software systems are coming out that do these things really well, like call recording or tracking, you know, lead scoring. And you don't have to get a giant sales force that does all of it. They all have this, my 3-letter acronym for the day. They all have an API.
Oh, yeah.
The API allows everything to talk.
Yep.
And one of the coolest tools out there, Microsoft has it. It's called Power BI. It's like 10 or 12 bucks a user. And then you connect to your Salesforce and you connect to analytics. And if you're just a bit geeky, you know, you can build some really cool dashboards, and you can bring it all together, and you don't have to run reports and put it in Excel and build pivot tables. Those days are almost over. So Power BI, APIs, I mean, those, if you put some time into that, you come up with some cool stuff.
I think I also, real quick, we were talking about analytics and traffic. Another good touch point is your Google My Business profile. I think that gets overlooked a lot. People don't have control of it. They don't know where it is, who's posting on it, how it exists. And there's some nice back-end, very simplified analytics to your Google business profile as well. So if you're unfamiliar with your Google business profile, you need to be familiar with it as fast as you possibly can, because it's kind of your life out there if you're not watching it.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's it for our questions. So we will go ahead and wrap up. And I very much appreciate all of our panelists. I've dubbed you the dream team of marketing. So yeah, so thank you very much. I thought this was fantastic. I took great notes. A few follow-ups. Kirsten has put in the chat all of the links to our social media. I did mention earlier that we did record this. We'll put it on our YouTube page, and that we ask you to share it with anyone that you might find value from this session. So you'll have the link to find it there. It takes a little bit to get it up, but we should have it up by the end of the day. We do have 2 more webinars coming up. You will get invitations, but if you want to mark your calendar, June 9th at 10 o'clock, Dr. Clint Longenecker is going to do a webinar on leading in a crisis. He calls it Learning Through Our Viral Trial with Style. So we've had some great conversations with him, and he's talked to numerous local businesses and had some great points to share and what other people are doing and some tips. So that will be June 9th. And on June 16th, we have Skylight Financial Group, one of our center sponsors, is doing a Zoom meeting on creative ways to use insurance premiums for estate planning. So we will get those invitations out. What we've been doing that's also been successful is I write a little summary on the webinar, and I will put that up on LinkedIn as a LinkedIn article. So we would ask you to like that and share that as well. And if there's any other topic, our programming goal through all this has been to be responsive to our members. And if there is a topic or something you're interested in, we will probably do something on the PPP now that new guidelines have come out. We have our own little dream team that does that as well. So we'll probably put that together for sometime next week. But if there's anything that we can do, any resources we could provide, any support that we can give, feel free to reach out and let us know. So, thank you. Thank you, panelists, and thank you everyone for logging online.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure.